So what do we do with obstacles? And I don't know that there's a day that I work in ministry where there's not some sort of resistance, some sort of problem that needs to be worked around, especially in the technology area. It really does act differently almost every
All the
single
time.
time. Like you could do something 100 different times and you'll have a different problem every single time.
You mean so I could spend $10,000 on this brand new audio solution and then it might not work?
This changes everything. Our eyes are on you as you show us how to live and love like you. This is a call for all to know. This changes everything.
Well, hello and welcome to Tabletop Confessions.
Hey, we're together again.
Yes, I know. It's so nice to see your face.
I know.
Kind of.
Thanks.
Well, we are so excited to dig into questions and answers today with Red River Leadership. And the question that came in is such a great question, and we talk about this a lot just between you and I. But what do you do when you run into obstacles? What a great question, because I think sometimes there's this perception when things are going well, which is our job to execute well,
Yeah.
right? That it's not a lot of work, and we just know what we're doing all the time. And I think that is something we should be pretty vocal about. That is not true.
Right.
So what do we do with obstacles? And I don't know that there's a day that I work in ministry where there's not some sort of resistance, some sort of problem that needs to be worked around, especially in the technology area. It really does act differently almost every
All the
single
time.
time. Like you could do something 100 different times and you'll have a different problem every single time.
You mean so I could spend $10,000 on this brand new audio solution and then it might not work?
Oh, it'll work. It just will take
Right.
it'll take
Oh.
there'll be some obstacles
So money
to it.
won't fix it necessarily.
Yes. No. And one of the things that I always talk about too, I was just telling you this because we talked about it in our team too. Like if you want the same thing every single day, basic, you're not low risk, low reward is kind of what I'm trying to say. That
Yeah.
if you want it to be easy, you don't have to work hard. And then it's probably not very attractive.
Right. Go be an accountant.
Right.
Do something 9 to 5
Right.
desk job. Not that accountants don't have stressful days,
Right.
but there's actually they probably have more stress. I should
Yeah,
have picked a
that
better.
was-
That was
yeah.
a terrible example.
Yeah,
but
something like
you
a
get
doctor.
the idea. Yeah, right. A doctor. Oh my gosh.
I'm just teasing. No.
Everybody has.
Everybody has
struggles
their
in life.
things, but there is just for every single industry, you can either just do the bare minimum, and that's totally fine sometimes. But what we're here to help is to get the best out of your ministry, to attract the most amount of people, so that we can get the word of God across to more and more people, so
Yeah.
that there's more and more relationships with Jesus.
Yeah.
So I didn't really think about obstacles that I've faced. Maybe you have some. I know we've got this LED screen, and it's 12 feet wide and 6 feet tall, and there's not a single week that we don't set that up, and I expect it to go the same way it did the week before, and it doesn't light up, or there's one panel that is a different color, or for a long time we were dealing with the computer where it wasn't enough power, so it was flashing all the time.
Yeah.
And so then we tried a different computer, and then there was a different thing, and so it just kind of took this thing. So when I look at obstacles, I always know that there's a solution. There's probably 5 or 10 solutions, right? And the thing with church work is that it's every single week. Once we get back to September for us at Calvary, we'll have 4 services every single week, 2 different days.
Yeah.
So it's like you're always preparing. There's never like now we have a week off, or we can relax and try something in a month. It's always it's always almost an urgency basis of, you're just always setting up, always tearing down, always trying something new. And so it gets a little frustrating sometimes, but you always know that there is a solution.
Right.
But you have to get out of that that urgency mindset and just do the next thing, right? But what is something that you run into? Can you think of something
Specific?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like right now, our iMac's slowing down. We talked a couple weeks ago on a video about the process of replacing that iMac and the research and the specs and all that stuff. So if you'd have questions on that, go back and look for that video. But that is frustrating in the process. Once we're able to pull the trigger on a replacement computer, that's great. That's a solution. But in the meantime, how do you find the solutions to deal with that? Knowing that your computer is going to act a little slower, your outputs won't always line up. One thing that I've always taught our team, or I always have to be reminding myself of, and our staff, I have an example here in a second, is to go into it expecting something not to work right. Like you go into your Sunday morning or into your rehearsal night or into your whatever time expecting things to not work, because that way when they do, you're suddenly not reactive to it, but you're responding. You're going, yep, here we go, we're going to figure it out, keeping positive vibes going the whole time, and just be and then if nothing does, or if everything goes right, you don't have any issues, that's a bonus. Like to me, I'm
coffee.
like, oh man, everything worked. Like that's so cool, and that's happened too. We're in the transition right now of we're going from PushPay as our online giving system. We're going to Planning Center Giving as our new system, because we're moving also into Planning Center People. We're making Planning Center a whole hub. So we just put out a course about Planning Center services. It's available now at redriverleadership.com. Go check it out, where we walk you through Planning Center services. We're ultimately using that entire umbrella now. But as we were moving into Planning Center Giving, I told our finance person doing it, I'm like, expect things to go wrong. This will not, you cannot transition a big project like that without having a few hiccups. And when those hiccups do come up, then you're not freaking out and worried about it.
You can kind of plan backwards, right?
Yeah.
So if you plan for everything to go right and your service is at 10, then people can show up at 9:30 and just show up.
Sure.
Our service is at 10, so I have the band there at 8:15. I have the tech team there at 7. I'm there between 5 and 6, just so I can start digging in. And I know that if I plan backwards and prepare for those things, if nothing goes wrong, that's great, right? But if something does, I have plenty of time. I have the space. I have the mentality. I've been up long enough that I'm a little bit clearer, that I can approach it with a clear mindset. And with PushPay, it's not like an event, but if you expect there to be time, process. Right? Then instead of saying, all right, we're gonna start it on, we're gonna purchase the plan or whatever. I don't exactly know how that all works, but on this day, and we're going live the next day. No, we have a month or a couple weeks so that we can have a trial process where the staff can get on it and see how that works, and then some of our leaders can. So anything that you are doing that is of high importance, you want to plan backwards as if there is something going to go wrong. I think that's brilliant. And it reminds me of, we've talked about this in a book that both of us have read, that Google, I don't know if there's a single person in our country who doesn't know what Google is, right? It's the biggest search engine, and Larry Page is the co-founder. And what I love about his mindset is his vision. They're known for putting things out that are they literally have changed our lives. But they wouldn't have gotten to that point if it weren't for his mindset and his mission. They actually plan to have a certain amount of failure. I think it's like a 30%. If they are failing less than 30%, he'll say, you are not thinking big enough. And so I think about that in the church world. Like if you, kind of like how we started this conversation, that if you aren't running into obstacles, if you are not failing, if you're not kind of ticking off a couple people, then you aren't thinking big enough in your ministry, in your worship, in everything, right?
That's so good.
So I think that for me, well, just in general, like naturally, from our ancestry, from our biology, that if there's something that's not going right, we want to steer the other way, because we were built to be scared of lions that are going to eat us. So we have that fear, and we turn away, and we just try and avoid those things.
Right.
But we have to push against the grain and lean into failure, lean into obstacles, because if we're not hitting those obstacles, we aren't thinking big enough.
Right.
And we think about, we constantly preach a God who is bigger than everything.
Right.
We talk about a God who's bigger than all of our problems, and then we want to shy away from those problems as if God can't handle it.
Yeah.
And I just don't think, I think our God is a high risk, high reward. I mean,
Yeah.
Jesus on the cross, there isn't a bigger high risk, high reward situation than Jesus on the cross. And so as somebody who stewards time and money in the church, and as a leader, for both of us, I think that we need to lean into that high risk, high reward.
Right.
And when those obstacles do come, we're ready for it, we're mentally prepared for it, we have, and we just keep on going for it.
Being willing to fail.
Yeah.
I've talked to so many church leaders who we kind of have this natural tendency to want to protect and sustain and create, and you do that to create a healthy atmosphere, to create comfortability in whatever you're doing. But I think at the end of the day, you have to be so willing to do that. And that starts here, in our brains and in our hearts, because we have a tendency to want to protect and keep and keep it safe and, and do our thing. I think that's how we all are. But being willing to fail is a huge way to move forward and catapult forward in a lot of ways.
One of the things that I love hearing from you often, and you'll probably have to figure it out so you're not naming names or specific situations, but there's been times where there's a chunk of time left before the service and people have said, that's good enough, we're just going to go without it. You know what I'm talking about. And how your mindset kicks in for that.
Yeah, no, it's very true. We've had along the way doing events where somebody will call a shot with 20 minutes to go still before people aren't even in there yet.
Yeah.
And we only have 20 minutes, so we're not gonna. This isn't working over here, but it's good enough.
Yeah.
It's good enough. And I'm like, we got 20 minutes, man. That's like the whole day. We got so much time to troubleshoot and figure it out. And if we put it all on the table and we just try to keep working through it and find solutions, we're going to keep failing, but we're going to fail, and then we're going to find that solution. And when you achieve that, it's such a cool moment where that you did whatever you could to make it as great as it could be.
It's been at least a decade, but reminds me of the book Fail Forward.
Yeah.
Have you read that?
Totally. Yep.
Yeah. Great book. Check that one out, Fail Forward. We're supposed to fail, but we're supposed to fail a little bit further ahead the next time, right?
Right.
And it's just, you think about all of the very successful things out there that have been game changers for our lives. No matter where you stand on any of it, like if you're pro or against or anything. But all these big industries, Google, like I mentioned, Amazon, even FedEx, those kind of companies that are changing the way that we live our lives. And it did not come without a risk. Yeah. Uber, Netflix, all these things that it wasn't a thing until they said that this is going to be a thing. Right. And they had to, I'm sure they failed over and over and over again to create these things that we literally live on.
Absolutely.
But this brings me to kind of my question for you, and that is, what obstacles are you running into? And one of the really purely the whole reason that Jon and I, Red River Leadership, exist is to help give you tools and resources for when you're running into those obstacles, so you don't have to fail as many times as we do. So we would love to hear in the comments, we would love to hear in our email inbox or messages, what obstacles are you running into, so we can create courses around that and help you go through those. Yeah. Jon mentioned Planning Center online course is live right now. Our Pro Presenter, your visual presentation.
Your
wow.
Visual aid.
Your visual presentation software. Those are two that have changed It completely changed the game and how we do things. But what other things? What are you looking for? Because we are here to help.
Yeah. One thing I want to land on too, with failure, I don't want you to leave thinking, to keep failing. But like your mentality, you have to stay so positive through that process. I've had guys, how did you stay so calm through that? I'm like, dude, under the surface, I was going nuts. Like it was like, oh, we're gonna do this, I don't know how we're gonna do this. But on the surface, you have to stay calm. Your team is looking at you. Everyone around you is looking at you, and your body language, how you are presenting. Whatever that process is you're leading people through that process of failure. You have to stay calm and stay positive and know deep down that you're going to find that solution. And if you don't, that's just part of the process, and you're going to fail through that, and you're going to figure it out. So staying positive, keeping a smile on your face. This is different, but I always tell our worship team, your cheeks have to hurt after worship. Like, I want to know that you're smiling so much, leading a song saying, my lighthouse, shine in the darkness, I will follow you. Like, you should be smiling through that. So always just smile and try to stay calm. We know it's hard. Yeah. I'm stressing and sweating bullets underneath it. But leading with a sense of calmness and optimism is huge.
It's like the duck underneath
yeah,
the water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Looks so happy on top.
Yeah, I know. Just so smooth. Ducks, they're happy.
I know.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Just again, we are here to help you. We want to be an extension of your team. No matter what you're dealing with, no matter what you're facing, we're here to help so that you can continue to do the things that God has called you to do.
Thanks, Nolan.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, John.
Yes, you're welcome.
God bless.